Today, we're going to talk about a really fascinating, kind of unsettling idea about power. We're going to do it by looking at two wild stories from history. One's about a super clever astrologer who literally talked his way out of his own execution. The other, it's about a celebrated hero who was rewarded for his amazing bravery with death. Yeah. These two tales, they're centuries apart, but they teach one single, powerful lesson about how to survive.
And this quote, this really gets to the heart of it. See, it's not always about being the smartest person in the room or having the most raw talent. Sometimes the thing that really gives you influence, control, and even helps you survive is just simple, strategic cunning. It's about understanding the game you're in and knowing how to play it.
Okay, so let's jump right in with our first story. This is a true account from 15th century France. We've got King Louis XI, a very powerful man, and his court astrologer. Now, this king was a guy who deeply, deeply believed in the stars, and this astrologer was his most trusted guide to the future. So here's where things get really intense. The astrologer makes this chillingly accurate prediction. He says the queen will die in 8 days. And sure enough, 8 days later, she does. Well, the king is completely devastated and he gets paranoid. He starts thinking one of two things. Either this astrologer murdered my wife just to prove his own prophecy, or he's so powerful that he's a direct threat to me. Either way, the king comes to one conclusion. This guy has to go. So the king sets a trap. He calls the astrologer up to a room in the highest tower of the castle. His guards are there waiting. And they have one simple secret instruction. When the king gives the signal, you throw the astrologer out the window. It's a perfect plan, right? No escape. The astrologer shows up, and the king decides to play this one last cruel little game. He looks at the man whose death he has already planned, and he asks him this. You say you know the future, so tell me, when are you gonna die? It's a trick question, a final bit of mockery before he gives the signal. But the astrologer, who's a master of reading people, not just stars, he sees the look in the king's eyes. He knows his life depends entirely on his next few words. And boom, this is just an absolutely brilliant sentence. The astrologer doesn't beg, he doesn't plead for his life. Instead, he delivers a prophecy that instantly ties his own fate to the king's. In that one moment, killing the astrologer is no longer about the king protecting himself, it becomes an act of suicide. The signal was never given. The astrologer not only lived, but the king protected him and cared for him for the rest of his life. So what really happened there? What did the astrologer do? It wasn't just a clever line. He was using a fundamental law of power. It's the law that separates people who thrive from those who get thrown away. He used what's known as the law of dependence. This is the core idea pulled right from Robert Greene's 48 Laws of Power, and the astrologer is the perfect example. He understood that to survive, the king had to need him alive. He made himself indispensable. By linking their fates together, the astrologer made sure that his own well-being became the king's #1 priority. You can think of it like a master-level chess game. Step 1, the astrologer knew the king's main goal was his own survival. Step 2, he positioned himself as absolutely essential to that goal. Step 3 was the checkmate move. He created a situation where hurting him would also hurt the king. And finally, step 4, he made himself completely irreplaceable. I mean, who else could give the king that kind of life-saving information? Nobody. Okay, now let's look at the flip side of this coin. Let's turn to our second story, a truly cautionary tale from medieval Italy. It's about a mercenary hero in the city of Siena, and it shows what happens when you're incredibly useful, but ultimately replaceable. So the setup is pretty simple. The city of Siena is under attack, and this one skilled mercenary basically single-handedly saves the entire city from its enemies. As you can imagine, he was hailed as a savior, a national hero. The people were so grateful and wanted to give him a reward that was worthy of what he'd done. And this was the big debate in the town. What do you give the man who gave you everything back? How can you possibly repay someone for the gift of your freedom and your safety? So they went through all the options. Money? Nah, that felt cheap. Land? Not good enough. They even thought about making him their king, but they felt like even that didn't really capture how heroic he was. They wanted a way to honor him forever, to make him immortal. And that's when they landed on a final, horrifying idea. I know, it sounds insane, but this is a real story. They decided that the only way to truly immortalize him was to make him their patron saint. And to do that, he had to be dead.
So the very people he saved murdered him. They built a monument and they started to worship him. His greatest accomplishment became his death sentence.
So when you put these two side by side, the crucial difference just pops right out. Both men were incredibly valuable, but the astrologer's value was his unique, ongoing insight. He was indispensable. The mercenary's value was his fighting skill, a skill he'd already used up. The threat was gone, the job was done. And worse, there were other mercenaries out there. He was replaceable. And that one single difference is why one of them got a long, secure life and the other got betrayed and killed. So, when you bring these two stories together, you get a really powerful lesson. The goal isn't just to be useful. It's not even enough to be a hero. The real goal is to be indispensable. It's about making sure your value isn't a one-time thing, but an ongoing necessity. So how do you avoid the hero's fate? Well, the key is developing what's called specific knowledge. This isn't something you can just get a degree in. It's the kind of deep expertise you build from your own unique experiences, your instincts, your passions. Here's the bottom line. If society can train thousands of other people to do exactly what you do, then society can always find someone to replace you for a cheaper price. So this means you have to play a different game. You need to combine your skills in a way nobody else does, like being a designer who also knows how to code, or an engineer who can give an amazing presentation. Build a personal brand that's all your own. And listen closely to this one because it's the part the mercenary missed. Never solve a problem so completely that you're no longer needed. Your goal is to be the person they need for the next problem. And the one after that. You have to make people dependent on your continued insight. So that leaves us with a really important question to ask ourselves. And it's not just about what you're good at or the value you can provide on paper. The real question, the one you should really think about, is this: what makes you irreplaceable?